The word rest usually brings to mind ideas of sleep or a nap. But another way that I tend to think about rest is internal rest, or maybe a better word for that would be peace. Internal rest for me looks like rest in my heart and in my mind. And today I want to spend a little bit of time talking about how I find internal rest and internal peace in my day-to-day life. The first way that I've learned to find internal peace and rest in my heart and in my mind is through silence. I am a music person. I really love good music. I really love good podcasts even. But sometimes in recent years, I've just found that what I really need is silence. Sometimes that looks like just riding in the car with absolutely nothing on. And what it always looks like is about 15 to 30, sometimes 45 minutes in the morning to just sit by the window and just enjoy the silence. I read a book earlier this year called Stolen Focus, and in it, one of the main ideas is this idea of mind wandering. This concept of mind wandering is really important, especially to creative thinking and emotional processing, and it really gave me a word to put with the experience that I've had when I just am driving and my mind just kind of swims and sorts out things and reflects and makes connections. It also really made sense in regard to how I feel in the morning, drinking my coffee and just hanging out by myself, alone, in silence. And I've just found that those moments are really clarifying for me. And I think it's that clarity that brings a lot of peace for me. I find that I just feel more connected to my heart. I feel that my mind is a lot more calm and a lot more clear as well. It's for that reason that I also usually pair my silence with journaling. I've been journaling since I was in middle school. I actually have my middle school journals. It is quite a journey to go back and read what 12 and 13-year-old Graham was so concerned about back then and what he was thinking about. But for me, journaling has always been a way to get my internal world, what's going on in my heart and my emotions and what's going on in my mind and my thoughts out of my body. I tend to be an internal processor sometimes, and sometimes it can all feel like too much inside. And so putting pen to paper, or for me, Apple Pencil to iPad, I have found to be a great way to slow me down. It forces me to really name the things that I'm feeling. It forces me to clearly articulate the things that I'm thinking. And again, I found that this just brings a lot of peace to my heart, a lot of clarity to my mind. There's also research to support this. There's a good bit of evidence that journaling leads to increased mental and emotional health. So it doesn't surprise me that journaling has been something that has been so helpful to me for all these years. Another way that I try to cultivate more internal peace in my heart and in my mind is really just getting a hold of my device and how much time I give to it. I mentioned this a little bit in my last video, but my focus settings are almost always on my phone, whether that is via some kind of time-based focus setting or also a GPS setting, such as for my work or at home. Another thing that I do for almost all of my device use is turning off most of my notifications. Definitely email, both my personal and my work email. I also turn off all social media notifications. And for me, that's just because even with all of those turned off, I still get 80 notifications a day, which is about one every 5 minutes. I've just found that that really distracts me. And again, the science says that every time we get distracted, it takes about 25 minutes for our brain to return to its previous state. That's a lot of time, and I just don't want to have my mind constantly trying to recover, and so I just try to set my phone up for success in order to help me do that. I also manage my screen time in terms of how much time I'm spending using specific apps, especially messages and WhatsApp and social media. I use the screen time feature in my phone, but I've grouped those apps together so that I can just monitor those. I use my iPad and my phone for my calendar almost constantly, and I also read on my devices a good bit as well. I use my notes app a lot, so I don't really want to take the screen time number at face value all the time, because I really do use my devices as tools more than anything. But for those moments where I use them to communicate and to have fun and to scroll through social media and look at the memes, I just want to make sure that I'm using that wisely. So I mentioned this in my last video, but I do go on a lot of walks. It's another way for me to just clear my head, to reconnect with nature, which is really good for my heart. And I have a pretty awesome pond outside my apartment, so I do spend a lot of time out here. Even if I get somewhere early, I usually try to prioritize just taking a few minutes and walking around the parking lot. Or if it's, somewhere that has a sidewalk, I'll walk around the block. And again, it just teaches me to slow down, which I feel like is something I say a lot, but for me, peace is learning to move at a more peaceful pace. And that's part of the reason that walks are so good for me. So another thing I try to do is, whenever I can, to sit outside. I know that probably sounds really straightforward, but just like walks for me, there's just something about the outdoors that is just really peaceful and calming. And I often try to just take a few moments and find 2 or 3 things that I find beautiful. That probably sounds really tender and really sweet, but really, for me, it's just trying to connect to beauty in some way, because again, for my heart and my mind, that helps me to just be more centered and to kind of put things in perspective. Another aspect for me of wanting to find this peace and rest in my heart and in my mind is really actively trying to avoid rushing. So to say that moving slowly, not rushing through life is a huge undertaking would be a pretty big understatement in my experience. I believe it was Miranda in Devil Wears Prada who said, "Feel free to move at a glacial pace." And I feel like that is what our culture and our society tells us all the time. This sarcastic implication that to move slowly is always inherently bad. However, wisdom literature has been telling us for centuries that moving at what they call a sacred pace is what we should be going for. And I found that to just be really rewarding. I had a friend a couple of weeks ago who said, "My new standard is that if it requires me to rush, then I'm saying no." And that's really stuck with me. Not rushing really just for me looks like whatever I'm doing, giving myself time and knowing that I'm always going to have limits. And while I could be getting stuff done faster, while I could be working harder, where I could be producing more, I don't have to. I can just take things slowly. I think that's another reason why getting outside is so centering for me. I think I look at the natural world and just realize how not in a rush it is. And it really inspires me and reminds me that I'm not as important as I think I am sometimes. And so that's another way that I try to find that inner peace in my heart and in my mind just by choosing to move at that sacred pace. Honestly, it may sound like I'm talking about this in a way that makes it sound like it's really easy, but honestly, it's not. And trying to find rest in my heart and in my mind has been something that I've been working on for a long time, like I said, and it's something that I think I'm going to be working on for the rest of my life. It changes so much from season to season and day to day. All of this to say, these are just some of the ways that I take care of my heart, my mind, or my internal world so that I can find rest and peace. Next week, I'm going to be spending some time talking about what rest looks like for my body. Again, last week I spent some time talking about sleep, but I'm also going to go into what it looks like in terms of my exercise and other ways that my body needs rest and recovery. So, if this video has been helpful for you, I hope that you'll join me then. Thank you so much if you've made it all the way to the end of this video. If you're not already, I know this is super cliche, but it would be super awesome if you subscribed, and if you're feeling really crazy, like the video. I'll see you next time.